All right, so first I'm going to talk about internet access. And what I want you to make sure that you do is before you sign on the dotted line, check with your providers to make sure that there's access available to your facility that you're looking at. I've seen it many times when customers moved in and we've gone to look and found that, for example, the cable modem service stopped just down the street, or that their building was on the other side of a railroad spur and unfortunately weren't able to deliver fiber connection to them without a great cost. So again, just taking that moment to make sure that facilities services are available to your building is very important. Now, when you're ready to start looking around, first of all, you can go directly to a service provider. Google for your area and see who's available that offers internet services. And you're going to find that there's a number that are available. So that's a good thing. Competition is always good. Now, my advice to you is to take a look at what we call a VAR, or a value-added reseller. One of the main advantages that a VAR can bring to the table to you is that they can monitor the service. So what that means is that any potential problem they know about before you even know about it. I think every one of us has been on the phone with their cable provider and have spent hours on hold waiting to just be able to talk to somebody to resolve the problem. Having the VAR in place of that, you would contact them and they would take care of that process. Many times they have direct access to the providers, so instead of waiting online, waiting on hold, they're able to submit your trouble ticket directly. And typically, because they're a smaller entity, you don't have the wait times that you would normally experience with calling into a big provider. So some of your options that you have to consider for internet access are DSL, which is digital subscriber line. That's kind of a low-tech service. It's delivered over the phone line. Sometimes when you're in a more rural area, it could be one of your few options that you have available. It's again a very low bandwidth, and but it does provide for a fast install. You can be up and running very quickly with that service. Cable modem, I think you're going to find that that's the best for a smaller business. It's shared bandwidth. It's best effort, so you might be buying a 100 meg download, 10 meg upload, but when you run a speed test, it's never going to show you that type of speed. But the advantages are that it typically can be installed relatively quickly. Metro Ethernet, that kind of depends upon the area that you're in, but what that does, it gives you a point-to-point wireless connectivity between the tower and your site. The advantages are that it gives you near fiber throughput, but you don't have the build cost. And again, because you don't have the build associated with fiber, this service can be turned up relatively quickly as well. Fiber, that's pretty much the best we have right now. Dedicated bandwidth, so you buy a 50 by 50 meg circuit, that's what you're getting. And there is a service level agreement that's with that. So that could be an advantage too, especially if you have a very, I'll say, data sensitive business where you need to be up. Downfall, gosh, it could take months to get that circuit installed. It's not quick, so there is definitely some planning that needs to go into that service. And then, we are having 5G rolled out. I'm just tossing this out here. It runs on cellular data. It's a newer offering, but definitely you'd be able to have a quick install for that. So as far as the recommendations concerned, newer business, I'd look at the cable modem if it's available in your area. Again, it's just a way of getting decent connectivity fast and it's usually very price competitive. So that's my recommendation. Okay, now I'd like to talk to you about internal wiring and managed services. So as you've been walking through your new facility, take a look around and make sure that they've got the basics already there, and that would be Cat5 wiring to all the locations that you might be looking at putting a desk or a phone, or possibly a copy machine. Can be very expensive if you need to come in and run cabling. I've seen it run between 75 and 150 per run. Also, make sure that they've already got a patch panel there. That just allows you to cross-cut your network internal wiring to your network equipment. And then, hopefully they would also have a rack there. So if there's any internal equipment that you have to put in, such as any servers or switches, that can be done right at that location. And again, it's just something to keep in mind, but you don't want to move in and then be, surprised that none of this has been put into your building, and that it's going to be your responsibility. I'd also like to talk about managed services. And first of all, you can do all this yourself. And you know what? As a new, company, as a newer business, you might decide to do that just to save cost. But I will caution you that the things I'm going to talk about, make sure that you do get what I'm going to call commercial grade equipment. Don't want to see you go to a place like Best Buy and buy a residential, piece of equipment just because of performance. You need it to be a business class type service. First of all, let's talk about like a firewall. Very important because you need to protect your network from any exterior intrusions. The last thing you want to get is a denial of service attack, or somebody coming in and putting any kind of virus on your network or taking over any servers. Firewall will provide you that protection. Switches. How do you get your network or your internet from where the cable modem, where the service is coming into your building, to all the locations within the building that require internet? You might have, maybe 4 or 5 or more places where you're going to need to have the service distributed throughout your facility. The switch is what's going to be able to provide that for you. Or Wi-Fi, for example. You may decide, hey, you know what? I'm not going to worry so much about doing things hardwired. I'm going to do it wirelessly. Well, you want to make sure that what you set up, you have a wireless, a mesh network that you can go from point to point within your facility and be on the same network. Down the road, you might want to look at things like like other managed services such as network, which would be covering your server. They would take care of any like updates, like any patches or any kind of outages that would be required. Typically, though, as a smaller company, that's something that you would be taking care of yourself, because that is not a cheap service. Such also is desktop support. So you've got your employees. You know what? You can have a company come in and take care of any kind of issues they may have. You might bring in a new piece of equipment. You might change a piece of equipment. You might have a problem with a piece of equipment. They can take care of all that for you. However, again, a cost comes with that, and for newer companies, you probably want to consider just taking care of that yourself until you hit a certain point. Just one thing to just talk about, like for the firewall, the switches, the Wi-Fi. Again, you can buy all that yourself, and you can manage that yourself. You can be your own IT guy, or your office manager can be your IT guy. The problem is that you're not a professional when it comes to that. And even though you can take care of it, you can spend more time and lose more resources with your staff while they're waiting for you to fix that. And I've just seen where a port on a firewall has gone bad, and my customer's been down literally for hours working with the support, trying to get walk through to figure out what's going on. And in the meantime, none of their employees can access the internet. Their phone, they've got a voice over IP service. It rides on the internet. It's down. They're basically down while the owner is spending their time not focusing on their core business, but trying to be an IT support person. And the cost for these type of services, the firewall, the switch, the Wi-Fi, can be relatively inexpensive compared to the amount of time you're going to potentially take. So I say look at that as an insurance policy. If you don't have a high level of expertise when it comes to IT, it might be a good way to kind of hedge your bet and not lose your time and your employees' time. So that's my 2 cents on that subject. My last point is to talk to you about is phone lines. And what I'm going to talk about is if you've ever heard what POTS line means, I'll give you $5. But it actually stands for something as simple as plain old telephone service. And that's provided by what they call the local exchange carrier, or LEC. And typically that's gives you power from the central office, so you can have a power outage and the phone line still works. So you would need this for a couple different reasons. One is if you have an on-prem phone system, you have to be able to get to the outside, the public switch telephone network. That's what the POTS line will do for you. Or you might have a fire panel that you need to have a POTS line. And in Ohio, there's a variety of different requirements as far as the local fire marshal, fire codes. Check that out. You might be able to do something a little cheaper with a wireless type service or even a digital type service. But that, again, is just another need for a POTS line in your facility. Or you might need it for a security system. And again, those might have the ability to do it wirelessly. And again, that would save considerable over the cost of putting in a dedicated line. And then, lastly, credit card. I'd like to see you get a credit card that's IP or internet based, but I've got many customers that use a credit card machine and they need a phone line for it. And the last thing is for fax line. And again, if you got a fax that you can do it over the internet, definitely going to be miles ahead. However, a lot of times, lower tech startup, you need a phone line for it. And you know what? They work. There's very few problems, and just something you have to deal with as far as a ongoing business expense. Now, there are several other options between getting from the LEC or the phone company. You can get like a digital dial tone service that's provided by a like your internet service provider. A business class service runs on their network. It gives dial tone. The difference is that it may be battery backup at the site, so it's not power from the central office, but it still gives you a good, and depending on where you're at within the state, a lot of times those can be less expensive than going with a traditional POTS line. And then the other would be a digital dial tone service, and that would be provided by any number of providers that would basically give you a phone line over the internet. Again, you do not have necessarily the backup in terms of power goes out, your phones go out. But if that's not a concern, it can give you a very cost-effective way of getting your dial tone for your on-prem phone system. Again, my name's Tom Barkley, Valtech Communications, and you can reach us at area code 614-575-2900. Thanks for listening.